What happens when the people living next door aren't just unfriendly but actively dangerous? When the suburban dream becomes a waking nightmare because the greatest threat to your family doesn't come from strangers, but from the house right beside yours? How well can you really know someone when a simple fence is all that separates your children's bedrooms from whatever darkness lurks behind their windows? These aren't paranoid fantasies about stranger danger, but the terrifying reality faced by families who discovered that evil doesn't announce itself with warning signs. It moves in quietly, waves hello over the fence, and begins planning your destruction from the moment you shake hands. The Whitman family thought they had found paradise when they moved to 1847 Maple Street in the quiet suburb of Rosewood Hills, just outside Denver, Colorado, in August 2018. Michael Whitman, a 36-year-old software engineer, and his wife Jennifer, a 33-year-old marketing coordinator, had saved for years to afford their dream home in one of the area's most desirable neighborhoods. With their 8-year-old daughter Sophie and 5-year-old son Tyler, they were excited to start fresh in a community that promised safety, excellent schools, and the kind of neighborly atmosphere that seemed increasingly rare in modern America. The house at 1847 Maple Street was a beautiful colonial-style home with 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, and a spacious backyard perfect for children to play. But what made the property truly special was the neighborhood itself. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, and residents who took pride in their community. The local elementary school was rated among the best in the state, and the crime rate was so low that many families left their doors unlocked, and children played outside unsupervised well into the evening. The Whitmans' immediate neighbors seemed to embody everything they had hoped to find in suburban living. To their right lived the Hendersons, a retired couple in their 70s who maintained an immaculate garden and were always available to accept packages or keep an eye on the house when the family traveled. To their left was the home of Dr. Amanda Foster, a pediatrician who worked at the local children's hospital and was a single mother to her teenage daughter Emma. But it was the house directly across the street that would forever change the Whitmans' understanding of safety, community, and the hidden darkness that could exist behind the most ordinary suburban facade. The property at 1850 Maple Street was owned by the Patterson family, Robert Patterson, a 42-year-old insurance claims adjuster, his wife Linda, a 39-year-old substitute teacher, and their 12-year-old son Brandon. The Pattersons appeared to be the perfect neighbors. Robert was friendly and helpful, always willing to lend tools or offer assistance with home maintenance projects. Linda was active in the school parent-teacher organization and frequently organized neighborhood social events. Brandon seemed like a typical middle school student, quiet but polite, who spent most of his time playing video games or riding his bicycle around the neighborhood. The first sign that something might be wrong with the Pattersons came just 3 weeks after the Whitmans moved in. But it was so subtle that Jennifer almost dismissed it entirely. She had been working in her garden on a Saturday morning when she noticed Robert Patterson standing at his living room window, watching her with binoculars. When she looked up and waved, he quickly moved away from the window. But the incident left her feeling uncomfortable in a way she couldn't quite articulate. Michael suggested that Robert might have been bird watching or looking at something else in the distance, and Jennifer tried to convince herself that she had misinterpreted what she had seen. But over the following weeks, she began to notice a pattern of observation from the Patterson house that went far beyond normal neighborly awareness. The Pattersons seemed to know details about the Whitman family's daily routines that they couldn't have learned through casual conversation. Linda would mention in passing that she had noticed Jennifer leave for work earlier than usual, or that she had seen Michael working late in his home office. Robert would comment on changes in the family's schedule, or ask about trips that the Whitmans hadn't mentioned to anyone in the neighborhood. Most unsettling of all was Brandon Patterson's apparent fascination with Sophie Whitman. The 12-year-old boy seemed to be constantly watching the 8-year-old girl, following her movements around the neighborhood and positioning himself to be near wherever she was playing. When confronted gently about his behavior, Brandon would claim to be doing something else entirely, but his explanations never quite matched his actions. Jennifer began keeping a journal of the Patterson family's unusual behavior. initially thinking that documenting the incidents might help her determine whether her concerns were justified or if she was being paranoid about normal neighbor interactions. The journal quickly filled with entries that painted a picture of surveillance and obsession that went far beyond anything that could be explained by casual interest or coincidence. The Pattersons appeared to be conducting systematic observation of the Whitman family's activities, noting their work schedules, shopping patterns, social activities, and even their children's school routines. Robert was frequently seen in his yard or garage during times when the Whitman family was active outside, and he always seemed to be listening to their conversations while pretending to work on projects or maintenance tasks. Linda Patterson's involvement in school activities gave her access to information about Sophie and Tyler's academic performance, behavioral reports, and social interactions with other children. She would often share details about the Whitman children's school experiences that went beyond what any neighbor should know, suggesting that she was actively seeking out information about them through her volunteer work. The situation escalated when Jennifer discovered that someone had been in their house while the family was away. Nothing had been stolen, and there were no obvious signs of forced entry, but items throughout the house had been moved or rearranged in subtle ways that indicated someone had conducted a thorough search of their belongings. Jennifer's jewelry box had been opened and the contents examined, with pieces placed back in slightly different positions than where she had left them. Michael's home office showed signs that his desk drawers had been searched, and his computer showed evidence of recent use despite having been turned off when the family left for their weekend trip. Most disturbing of all, Sophie's bedroom showed clear signs of intrusion. Her stuffed animals had been arranged differently, clothing in her drawers had been disturbed, and several items of her clothing were missing, underwear and a favorite nightgown that couldn't be found anywhere in the house. Michael immediately contacted the police, but the responding officers were skeptical about the break-in claims. There was no evidence of forced entry, no valuable items had been stolen, and the subtle signs of intrusion that Jennifer described could have been explained by the family simply forgetting how they had left things before their trip. The police suggested that the Whitmans invest in a security system if they were concerned about home invasions, but they declined to open a formal investigation based on the minimal evidence of actual criminal activity. The officers' dismissive attitude left Jennifer feeling frustrated and vulnerable, realizing that the family would have to protect themselves without help from law enforcement. Michael installed a comprehensive security system with cameras monitoring all entrances to the house, motion detectors throughout the interior, and silent alarms that would alert them to any unauthorized entry. But the new security measures revealed that their safety concerns were even more serious than they had initially realized. The security cameras captured Robert Patterson conducting regular surveillance of their property during nighttime hours. He would cross the street and walk around the perimeter of their house, testing doors and windows and examining the security system itself. On several occasions, he was recorded attempting to disable or redirect the cameras, suggesting that he was actively planning to defeat their security measures. More chilling still were the recordings of Brandon Patterson in their backyard during times when the family was asleep. The 12-year-old boy would climb the fence between the properties and spend hours watching the house from various positions in their yard. He seemed particularly focused on Sophie's bedroom window, often standing beneath it for extended periods while she slept. The audio recordings from the security system captured conversations between Robert and Brandon Patterson that revealed the true scope of their obsession with the Whitman family. The father and son discussed detailed plans for gaining access to the house, strategies for avoiding detection by the security system, and specific intentions regarding Sophie that made Jennifer physically ill to hear. "She's almost ready," Robert was recorded saying during one late-night conversation in the Whitmans' backyard. "Another year or two, and she'll be perfect. We just need to be patient and keep preparing." Brandon's responses indicated that he had been groomed by his father to participate in whatever they were planning for Sophie. The boy spoke about the 8-year-old girl with a possessive familiarity that suggested he had been watching and studying her for months, learning her habits and preferences in preparation for some future action. The recordings also revealed that the Patterson family's interest in the Whitmans was not spontaneous or coincidental. Robert Patterson had apparently researched the family extensively before they moved to Rosewood Hills, using public records and social media to learn about their background, financial situation, and family structure. The Pattersons had specifically chosen to target the Whitman family based on criteria that included the presence of a young daughter and the parents' work schedules that would leave the children vulnerable. Armed with this evidence, Michael and Jennifer contacted the FBI, believing that the Pattersons' behavior constituted a credible threat to their children's safety and possibly indicated planning for kidnapping or other serious crimes. The federal agents who reviewed the security recordings agreed that the evidence suggested criminal conspiracy and initiated a formal investigation into the Patterson family's activities. The FBI investigation revealed that Robert Patterson had a criminal history that had been concealed through identity fraud and record manipulation. His real name was Robert Kellerman, and he had served time in federal prison for crimes involving the exploitation of children. He had been released 5 years earlier and had assumed the false identity of Robert Patterson to avoid monitoring by parole officers and law enforcement agencies. Linda Patterson was revealed to be Linda Morrison, Robert's accomplice in previous crimes who had also been using a false identity to avoid detection. The couple had a documented history of targeting families with young children, using elaborate deception and surveillance to identify and groom potential victims. Brandon Patterson was not the couple's biological son, but rather a child they had abducted 7 years earlier from a family in Arizona. The boy had been so young when he was taken that he had no memory of his original family and had been raised to believe that Robert and Linda were his parents. DNA testing confirmed that his real name was Christopher Martinez, and his biological parents had never stopped searching for him. The revelation that the Pattersons were actually career predators who had been living under false identities explained the sophisticated nature of their surveillance and planning. They had perfected their methods over years of targeting families, using their apparent respectability and community involvement to avoid suspicion while they prepared to claim new victims. The FBI's investigation also uncovered evidence that the Pattersons had been planning to abduct Sophie Whitman within the next few months. They had developed detailed plans for taking her from her bedroom during nighttime hours, had prepared a location where she could be held, and had established false documentation that would allow them to relocate to another state with their new daughter. The arrest of Robert and Linda Patterson was coordinated with a massive federal operation that involved multiple agencies and jurisdictions. Law enforcement had to move carefully to ensure that Christopher Martinez would be protected during the arrest, and that the couple's extensive criminal network could be dismantled before other potential victims could be harmed. The arrests took place on a Tuesday morning when Robert and Linda were both at home and Christopher was at school. FBI agents surrounded the house at 1850 Maple Street while the Whitman family watched from their living room window, finally seeing justice for the months of terror they had endured. Robert Patterson resisted arrest and attempted to destroy evidence, but the FBI had been monitoring the property for weeks and was prepared for his attempts to eliminate incriminating materials. Linda Patterson attempted to claim that she was an innocent victim of Robert's manipulation, but the evidence clearly showed that she had been an active and willing participant in their criminal activities. The discovery of Christopher Martinez's true identity led to an emotional reunion with his biological parents, who had never given up hope of finding their son. The boy required extensive counseling and support to help him understand that the people he believed were his parents were actually his kidnappers, and that he had a real family who had been searching for him for 7 years. The Patterson house was searched extensively by federal agents, who found evidence of numerous other crimes and potential victims. The basement had been converted into a holding area designed to imprison kidnapped children, complete with restraints, surveillance equipment, and soundproofing that would prevent victims from calling for help. The house also contained a collection of photographs and personal items taken from dozens of children over the years, suggesting that the Pattersons had been active predators for much longer than initially suspected. Many of the items corresponded to missing children cases from multiple states, providing law enforcement with new leads in investigations that had gone cold years earlier. The computer equipment seized from the Patterson house revealed an extensive network of individuals involved in child exploitation and trafficking. The Pattersons had been part of a nationwide criminal organization that specialized in identifying, surveilling, and abducting children from suburban families who believed they were safe in their communities. The trial of Robert and Linda Patterson received extensive media coverage and exposed the sophisticated methods used by modern predators to infiltrate suburban communities. The couple's ability to maintain false identities establish themselves as respected community members, and conduct long-term surveillance of target families, demonstrated that traditional assumptions about stranger danger were inadequate to protect children from contemporary threats. The Whitman family's decision to document the suspicious behavior and install security systems was credited with preventing Sophie's abduction and potentially saving the lives of other children who might have been targeted by the criminal network. Their vigilance and willingness to trust their instincts despite skepticism from others had broken up a criminal operation that had been active for over a decade. The psychological impact on the Whitman family was severe and long-lasting. Sophie required extensive therapy to deal with the knowledge that she had been targeted for kidnapping, and Tyler struggled with anxiety about the safety of their home and neighborhood. Michael and Jennifer found it difficult to trust neighbors or community members, knowing how completely they had been deceived by the Pattersons' facade of respectability. The family ultimately decided to move away from Rosewood Hills, finding that they could no longer feel safe in a community where they had been so thoroughly surveilled and targeted. They relocated to another state, taking extensive precautions to protect their new identity and location from anyone who might wish to target them again. The house at 1850 Maple Street remained empty for over a year after the Pattersons' arrest, as potential buyers were deterred by the property's association with criminal activity. When it was finally sold, the new owners completely renovated the interior, removing all traces of the basement prison and surveillance equipment that had been used to threaten their neighbors. The Rosewood Hills community was forever changed by the revelation that predators had been operating in their midst for years, while maintaining the appearance of model citizens. Neighborhood watch programs were strengthened, background check procedures were implemented for community volunteers, and residents became more vigilant about suspicious behavior that they might previously have dismissed. The case led to changes in law enforcement protocols for investigating reports of suspicious neighbor behavior, with new recognition that seemingly minor incidents could be indicators of serious criminal planning. Training programs were developed to help officers recognize the signs of systematic surveillance and predatory behavior in residential communities. The FBI used the Patterson case to educate communities nationwide about the methods used by modern predators to identify and target families. Public awareness campaigns emphasized the importance of trusting parental instincts, documenting suspicious behavior, and taking proactive security measures to protect children from sophisticated criminal operations. Christopher Martinez's recovery and reunion with his biological family became a symbol of hope for other families dealing with missing children cases. His story demonstrated that even children who had been missing for years could be recovered and rehabilitated, giving renewed energy to search efforts and cold case investigations nationwide. The criminal network that the Pattersons had been part of was largely dismantled through the evidence recovered from their house and computer systems. Dozens of arrests were made across multiple states, and several children were recovered from situations where they had been held by other members of the organization. Jennifer Whitman became an advocate for family safety and community vigilance, sharing her experience with other parents and community groups to help them recognize the warning signs of predatory behavior. Her documentation methods and security strategies became a model for protecting families from sophisticated criminal threats. Michael Whitman worked with technology companies to develop better security systems and monitoring tools that could help families detect and respond to surveillance activities. His software engineering background allowed him to create solutions that were both effective and accessible to ordinary suburban families. The Patterson case was studied by criminologists and law enforcement agencies as an example of how modern predators could exploit the trust and complacency of suburban communities. The sophistication of their methods and their ability to maintain false identities for years challenged conventional assumptions about community safety and child protection. The investigation revealed that the Pattersons had been responsible for at least 12 child abductions over a 15-year period, making them among the most prolific predators in recent American history. Their ability to avoid detection for so long raised serious questions about background check procedures and community oversight of individuals working with children. The legal proceedings against Robert and Linda Patterson resulted in multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring that they would never again be able to harm children or threaten families. Their convictions also provided closure for the families of their previous victims, many of whom had never known what had happened to their missing children. The house where the Whitman family had lived at 1847 Maple Street was eventually sold to a family who were fully informed about the property's history and the criminal activities that had taken place across the street. The new owners worked with the community to implement additional safety measures and maintain vigilance against similar threats. The Rosewood Hills community established a memorial fund to support families dealing with missing children cases and to fund research into preventing child abduction. The fund was named in honor of Christopher Martinez and the other children who had been recovered as a result of the investigation sparked by the Whitman family's vigilance. Years later, Sophie Whitman would have only vague memories of the terror her family had experienced when she was 8 years old. But the security consciousness and vigilance that her parents had instilled in her would serve as protection throughout her childhood and adolescence. The experience had taught her family that safety required constant awareness and that evil could hide behind the most ordinary appearances. The Patterson case became required reading in criminal justice programs and law enforcement training academies, serving as a case study in how organized predators could exploit community trust and parental complacency. The methods used by the criminals and the investigative techniques that had exposed them became standard knowledge for anyone working in child protection. The story of the Whitman family's ordeal served as a powerful reminder that the greatest threats to children often came not from strangers lurking in dark places, but from seemingly respectable community members who had gained the trust of parents and neighbors. Their experience proved that vigilance, documentation, and willingness to act on suspicious observations could mean the difference between safety and tragedy for vulnerable families. The quiet suburban street where the nightmare had unfolded eventually returned to its appearance of peaceful normalcy, but the residents carried with them a new understanding of the hidden dangers that could lurk behind friendly facades. The Pattersons' crimes had shattered the illusion of automatic safety in suburban communities, but they had also demonstrated that communities could protect themselves through awareness, vigilance, and mutual support. The children of Rosewood Hills grew up with a different understanding of neighborhood safety than previous generations, taught to be observant and cautious while still maintaining the ability to trust and form healthy relationships with appropriate adults. The balance between safety consciousness and normal childhood development became an ongoing challenge for parents throughout the community. The investigative techniques and security measures that had exposed the Patterson family's criminal activities became widely adopted by families and communities across the country. Home security systems became more sophisticated and accessible, and neighborhood watch programs evolved to include training in recognizing the signs of systematic, predatory behavior. The legal precedents established by the Patterson case strengthened law enforcement's ability to investigate and prosecute crimes involving long-term surveillance and planning for child abduction. The evidence standards and investigative procedures that had been developed during the case became models for similar investigations nationwide. In the end, the Whitman family's terrifying experience with their criminal neighbors had exposed a network of predators and led to the recovery of multiple missing children, transforming their personal nightmare into a victory for child safety and community protection. Their willingness to trust their instincts and take action despite skepticism from others had saved not only their own daughter, but potentially dozens of other children who might have been targeted by the criminal network. The story served as a powerful reminder that ordinary families living ordinary lives could become targets of sophisticated criminal operations, but it also demonstrated that vigilant parents and supportive communities could successfully protect their children from even the most dangerous threats. The price of safety was eternal vigilance, but the reward was the preservation of innocent lives and the security of families throughout America. Have you ever felt like your neighbors were watching your family too closely? Have you noticed behavior that seemed friendly on the surface but felt wrong in ways you couldn't explain? If this account of predatory neighbors and their criminal network has opened your eyes to the sophisticated threats that can hide behind suburban respectability, subscribe to our channel for more investigations into the hidden dangers that lurk in seemingly safe communities. Share your own experiences with suspicious neighbor behavior in the comments below. Your observations and vigilance could be the key to protecting another family from becoming the next target of predators who exploit our trust in community safety.